Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to visualize quantitative data. What is quantitative data? Quantitative data is basically data about numerical data. The data can consist of things like amounts and quantities. Two types of charts can be used normally to visualize quantitative data. They are histograms and scatter plots. These are illustrations of an histogram and scatter plots. In this video, I'll be showing you how to create these type of charts, and I'm going to be using the data set from the Airbnb listings in New York City, which are used in the illustration for qualitative data visualization. So to begin, I've created a new notebook, and inside this notebook, inside this cell here, I've imported the libraries I need. I've imported pandas, and I'm going to refer to it throughout this notebook as PD. I've imported matplotlib.pyplot, and I'm going to refer to it throughout this notebook as PLT. I've imported Seaborn, which I'll be referring to as SN. I've imported NumPy, which I'm going to be referring to as NP. NumPy is mainly used for quantitative data visualization. So I'm going to run the cell so as to register these libraries I've imported. NumPy is a useful library that can be used for scientific computing in Python. It contains functions that allow you to create data efficiency. So to begin, to access the data set, which is inside this CSV file, located in the same directory that I started the Jupyter Notebook server. So I've created a variable here called listings, and I'm set it to equals to PD, which refers to the pandas library, and I'm using the read_CSV method from the pandas library to read this file called listings.csv. So it's going to read that file, and then the data frame it returns is going to store it in this variable called listings. I'm just going to run this to register that. So now if I just run this listings, just call the name of the variable. If I run that, it should return the data set. So this is the data set contained in this CSV file called listings.csv. It's a listings of Airbnb listings in New York City. Next thing I want to do with this data set is to use the hist method from matplotlib.pyplot. I'm going to use that method to create a histogram that displays a distribution of the quantitative data in the price column of the listings data frame. So this is the code here. So we've got the hist method from the matplotlib library, and inside there we are passing in, we're getting the data from this listings variable, and we are going to represent the price. So we basically want to display a distribution of the quantitative data in the price column. So we've got a column called price. So this is the column here, price. So that's the column I am targeting here. We want to display a histogram that shows the price for that column for this data frame. And we're using the show method from the matplotlib to show the histogram. So here on the second line, we're using the X label to display the price in US dollars. So this X label here is basically going to display the price in US dollar on the X axis, all right, with the price in dollars. Notice the brackets and notice, don't miss out the quotes, if not it will not work. So inside the square bracket we have quotes that encloses this price, and notice here we've got the price, we've got the single quote here, and we've got the closing single quote here. So make sure you have all the quotes match up, and then the plt.show method will show the histogram. So let me just run the cell so we can see the histogram. Notice I have an error, or the reason the chart, the histogram is showing, but the reason I'm getting this error is that this X label here, I have spelled it wrong. So it should be label. So let me just get rid of that. All right, so I've got the right spelling. That should be X label. So if I run that again, I don't expect to see the error. So you can see now it's not displaying the histogram. Notice that the histogram here that has been created is kind of difficult to see where the data lies. All right, this here, the histogram here, the prices are grouped into contiguous intervals. So these intervals are called bins. So it's really difficult to see where the data lies with respect to the bins. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to recreate this histogram using the hist method, but this time I'm going to include an optional bins parameter, which I'm going to set to a specific range of numbers. So here I'm trying to recreate the histogram, but this time I have added an extra parameter which I have set to a specific range. All right, so these are the range 0, 1100 and 40. The first number I have passed to this arrange method represents the left end of the first bin. The second number represents the right end of the last bin, and the third number represents the step size or the width of each of the bin. So let me go ahead and run the cell. I'll click run. So now you can see here it's much easier to read the histogram. So you can actually see where the data lies with respect to the bins. And as you can see here, it appears that in New York City, a lot of the prices of the Airbnb listings lie between $50 to around $500. Next, I want to create scatter plots. Scatter plots are usually used to compare two sets of quantitative data. So let's say I want to create a scatter plot to compare the prices of Airbnb listings and the number of reviews for each of those listings. To do that, I'm going to use the scatter method from the matplotlib.pyplot library. So this is how I've represented it. So this is the scatter method, and inside there we pass for the x-axis. We are going to use the data frame from the listings variable, and we're going to use the price column. From the y-axis, on the y-axis, we're going to use the data frame from the listings variable, and we're going to display the column that says number of reviews. We're using the X label to display the price. On the X-axis, we're using the Y label to display the number of reviews on the Y-axis, and we're using the show method from the matplotlib library to show the scatter plot. So let's go ahead and run the cell so we can see what the scatter plot look like. So you can see this is the scatter plot. Let's say I want to restrict the x-axis so that the scatter plot only goes up to a price of 8,100. So to do this, I will have to recreate the scatter plot using the scatter method. And this time I will have to use another method called xlim method from the matplotlib.pyplot library. So this is how I've represented it, and you can see here I've added this line here for the xlim method, and that we're using that method to restrict the x-axis so that the scatter plot only goes up to a price of 8,100. So I'm going to go ahead and run the cell. So I click on the cell and click run. You can see the new scatter plot that has been created. Let's say I want to decrease the size of the points on the scatter plot. To do this, I can recreate the scatter plot using the scatter method, but this time I will also include the size parameter. So this is how I've represented it. You can see here after the comma I've got S here. This S basically represents the size, and I have set it to 5. So let me run the cell. I just click on the cell and click run, and you can see the scatter method here is different from this one because I have used the size method. So you can see from this scatter method, I've been able to decrease the size of the points on the scatter plot by using the size parameter, which I represented by S. You'll notice that the points on this scatter plot are a bit smaller, and this plot is a little easier to look at. At first glance at this plot, you will notice a trend. It appears that the listings with lower prices have more reviews. This basically leads me to ask the following questions. Is there an association between the price and the number of reviews for the listings? This is just one example of a type of question that can come up when you are visualizing your data. Also, you will want to conduct further analysis to investigate this type of question. So visualizing your data can help you observe trends, which can lead you to ask questions, which then informs the kind of further analysis that you may need to perform to answer those questions. And you can use things like histograms and scatter plots to visualize quantitative data. So that is it for this video. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.